Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Expand and Evolve podcast. This week I have a guest with me, Christy Dreiling, and I'm so excited for you guys to hear from her because I just feel like you've been such a vision for me in my journey. And the way we even met, I'm always like, everything, if you start paying attention, is so divinely placed. Like, I remember that day we were at like a gala basically, and there was no seats, and you came and sat at our table. And I remember just looking at you and being like, who is this person? Like, I could feel your energy, and I was like, there was something there that I couldn't figure out why we were being drawn together, but I was like, there's some type of something here, and I don't know what it is. And you made an impact on me that night in terms of business and what you said in just a few words. But then it was like we were at something else, and then I started seeing you again. And it was just like we kept bumping into each other. And I feel like it was so perfect because little did I know I'd be going through a separation almost a year after speaking to you. And you had navigated that and gone through that. And were kind of my vision for what my future could be if I just went through the process of the growth and the healing and the uncomfy steps and the scary steps to know that on the other side of this, there's beauty in it and you can feel free and you can do all of this within you. And so I just want to say thank you because you going through that journey and me being able to see you do that like gave me hope and inspiration for my own. And I'll never forget that day we were at in Green Bay and you were sitting on the floor with your new boyfriend and you were just sharing and you were so full of like love and light. And I was just like, this is what is in the future if you just go through the tumultuous roughness of unraveling and all the feelings. So thank you for that. So that's my little intro. And I just wanted to talk with you kind of that journey because I think so many people are on that right now and finding their way into that. And whether they're navigating a separation or they've gone through a separation or they're trying to decide to go through a separation or just their relationship isn't where they want it to be, but maybe they do want to stay with the same person. Just how those steps of like the divorce and everything led you and just maybe what started you on your spiritual path.
I just love you. I'm so
I
excited to
love
be
you.
here. I
Yeah.
feel like when we come together, magic does really happen, and so I'm thrilled for the listeners that are going to gain so much from this. And that's what I love about podcasts is like you just never know who's listening, and the one seed we plant could completely change someone's life. I will say my spiritual journey started when I was like 11. I would literally take myself to church, and I'm not religious. I'm not a churchgoer now, but I had such a traumatic childhood with forefathers that were, abusive drug addicts or alcoholics, and I watched a lot of things as a younger child. So I just knew that there had to be more. So I started the journey then. But I would say I think I was in my 30s when I started studying metaphysics. I wound up getting my bachelor's in divinity, my master's in metaphysics. I had always been a seeker of the truth and the light. I've loved studying spirituality. I love whether it's Christianity, whether it's Buddhism, whether it's the Tao Te Ching, whether it's Kabbalah. Currently, right now, I love studying the Kabbalah, and I'm passionate about that. And so I really do feel if we have a strong spiritual foundation, and I say spiritual because many people confuse that with going to church and religion, but it's more of a way of being and handling your life in ways that are conscious rather than reactive. And so my spiritual path has always been a part of my journey from such a young age. And I've made many mistakes along the journey. Or I would hate to say mistakes. They were all meant to be, but in the process of making a decision, I think many of us are afraid to make a decision. But the truth is that even the decisions we think were bad were actually pretty fabulous. So that's a little bit about my spiritual journey.
I love it.
It just keeps
And
evolving.
I realize for so many people coming on, they don't know you. So I'm thinking like, I know everything. I've listened to your own podcast. I've spoken with you about things in your life, but maybe like high level, like how you just mentioned that the fathers and the situation that you were in, and maybe just that decision that you made because I feel like when you're going through really hard seasons like that, you are drawn to spirituality religion, whatever it's going to be earlier on, because you're like, I need to know that there's something else. And so you're drawn to a higher power. But for you, because I feel like you were young, right? When you made the decision, like, I am not going to live my life like this. Like, I'm going to make something of myself and be different from where I came from.
Right.
So, where was that decision for you? When did you make
Mm.
that? How old were you again?
I was actually 10 years old, and there was an incident that happened. It's incredibly vivid, still in my memory. I share it with a lot of people, but that's when I stopped being a kid. My mother had married the manager of the Pizza Hut, which is the Pizza Hut we would live behind when I was younger. So they wound up getting married. She wound up working there. And part of my story, if you've ever read my book LOL, which I encourage everyone, it's a really inspiring book. But my mom would purposely mess up pizzas and put them in the car, and that's what we would eat at night. Okay, so it was kind of ironic that she wound up marrying this man, but we had thought at that time that, oh my gosh, this is like everything. We're going to have a house. And so one night, my mom had to go to work, and she had my baby sister on her hip, and I'm like begging her not to leave me. And my father at that time, he had on his wife beater tank top, and he was sitting there doing coke, and there was pot and drugs everywhere. And he was laughing with his friends. And so I went up. My mom just said, "Go up to your room, close the door, put Carol to sleep." So I went up to my room, and I had a little bitty black and white TV in my room that had aluminum foil on the antennas, which I know you're too young to probably even know what that is, but
I still
that
know, but yeah.
tells my age. And I remember sitting there. My sister was asleep, and I saw the new Miss America get crowned. I had never seen anyone so beautiful. And I remember thinking, oh, she's so clean. It was so weird for me. I was thinking, oh my gosh, she's perfect. And at that moment, I heard this loud crash downstairs, and it woke my sister up. So I went down, I looked at my stepfather, and I said, "Would you please be quiet? You just woke up my sister." And he says, "Come here." And I said, "No." And he said, "Come here." And I went to him, and he had some pot in his hand, and he said, "Smoke this." And I said, "I'm not going to, no, I'm not." And he said, "If you don't smoke it, I'll kill you right now." So at 10 years old, I inhaled. And of course, the memory is so vivid. I threw up all over the place, and there was no food. It was just clear liquid. So it was obvious I hadn't eaten that night. And he shoved me in my own vomit and called me some really horrific names. And I remember running upstairs, and I grabbed my baby sister, and I rocked her to sleep, and I saw the new Miss America get crowned, and I said, "I'm going to be her." So at 10 years old, I stopped being a kid, and I needed to find my way to the crown.
I muted myself because my dog was barking. But I just, every time I hear that story too, I'm like, it's just so, I think of so many people in the world who, in that moment, you're faced with a decision. Like, are you going to succumb to your circumstances and choose to be a victim for the rest of your life? Or are you going to rise above it? And that is exactly your journey where you're like, okay, I'm going to find my way to the crown. And obviously, did you end up doing Miss America? You did some modeling, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I wound up becoming Miss Kansas Teen USA when I was 17. I competed on national television with Dick Clark back in the day.
Yeah.
So that was I didn't win the first time I did it, but the second year I went back, I did win. And that was it was my path out, because in that same year, I had become a finalist for Teen Magazine's Maybelline Model Search of the Year. So here I was in this little bitty country town, population 5,000, and I'm auditioning for Star Search. I'm just got in Teen Magazine, and all of these things were happening. But interestingly, up to that point, it was because I literally saw the vision. There was no way for me to not live my dream. And when other kids were partying, I had my fair share of parties, I'm not going to
Yes.
lie, but I was dreaming of getting out. And so people could feel that in my energy, that this was a girl that was not messing around.
Yeah. I love it. Okay, so then you were 17, 18, and then I know not long after that, what led you to your relationship that became what? How long were you guys married? Over 20 years?
We were married for over 20 years. We got pregnant after just a couple of months of dating. But here's what's so interesting. I've learned so much in my journey that they're the ones that are yours they're meant to be with you will be with you, period. And when the contract is done with those people, you will be ready for your next contract, for your next evolution. So this man, this my ex-husband, who's a beautiful, kind, gentle, beautiful being, we raised three incredible sons together. We actually met on my father's birthday and his father's birthday. We met. They shared the same birthday. We met on that day.
Mm-hmm.
The stars aligned,
Yep.
totally aligned. I was around 20 when I gave birth to my older son, and what I knew, I was so in fear. I know, Carly, you and I talked the other day on my, maybe it was just in person, I can't remember, but I remember
Yeah.
thinking to myself, um, I remember my ex-husband, and he wasn't committing to me to a marriage. And I remember saying to him over and over, if you don't want to be with me, just let me know. Because listen, I can raise my kid on my own. I don't need you. I don't, but I need to know. And there was this one night that I was really energetic about this. And he walks upstairs, he comes back down, and he throws a ring in my lap and he says, there, are you happy now? And there was this part of me that was sad because that's the way it happened. But then there was this other part of me that was happy because now I felt, okay, now I'm safe.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have a nice man, a good man who comes from a good family who will be a safe place for my children. So we got married, and you know, it was he was easy to get along with. He was never abusive. He was never emotionally abusive, physical abusive. Like, he was a great man. There wasn't this passion or this fire or this growth. Like, I would always want him to grow with me or read books with me, and he wouldn't. He wouldn't do therapy with me. We didn't get along in those departments.
Mm-hmm.
And so we raised our three kids, and we built the dream, and we built the dream home, and we traveled the world and had the white picket fence, and we had our ups and downs. But I remember just thinking that maybe in this life I wasn't meant to have a passionate relationship where I remember friends saying they had this sex life that was incredible. And I'm like, I guess I got everything else in this life, but I'm just not going to get that. I'm not, and it wasn't because of him. It was because of me.
Both. Yeah.
It wasn't anything he did. It was just, I wasn't feeling it with him. So I don't know how I ended up on sex life, but
it's because it's so part of it. Because I was the same. I thought, well, all these other things are so good. Like, maybe that's just not in the cards, or maybe that's not real, or maybe that's just, a fantasy on TV that they paint you about these relationships, but that's not real. So
right.
I should be so glad that I have a good man. And I like everything you just said edifies so much of what I was feeling, because it's so sad when you come from that place, like what you saw the father figure in your life, that you're like, he doesn't beat me. And I know I can come home and he's a good guy. Like,
Right.
we've hit the jackpot where I'm
Yeah.
like, the standards are set so low because you've been abused, or you've just been mistreated so badly, that as long as you're not being abused and he's kind of at home, safe, not like cheating on you, you're like, great, this is good. Until you end up realizing, as you do the growth, and it was the same for me, like, I wanted the growth, I wanted the evolution, I wanted that, I call it like a sacred union where you're working together to build and work through all your stuff to just grow together. And then that connection and that level of intimacy is what brings the sex life that you're talking about. But you can't have that when you're not intimate and growing together. Like, that doesn't exist because there's this disconnect. And like, neither of you are open to a place to receive that and do that together. So I'm just like, no, I totally get it. And also, how sad that was our bare minimum.
Well, but here's what's interesting is
Yeah.
that he was like perfect for me then. Like,
Yes.
I remember thinking, wow, I nailed it. Like, I
Yeah.
did such a great job here. I'm so proud that I just raised the bar for my family to see. And so it doesn't down, like, he is an
No.
awesome
Yes.
man. But what's interesting was that we don't know what we don't know,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what I realized was that it wasn't fair to him. Like he used to say to me, Christy, why is it you can love a homeless person on the street so much more than the love you give to me? How can you go hug 1,000 people at a conference, but yet you can't even come up to me and give me hugs? My heart chakra had not been opened yet until I hit my 40s. So I blocked love. But he wasn't aware of what he needed to do to go through the fire with me. I needed a partner that would be able to stand in the fire and say, I want to know your shit. I want to stand in the shit with you and let's do the work. And I'm not going to like it, but I'm here. I'm ready. Let's go. You know? So that had he been that in the relationship, I might still be in the relationship today. I don't know.
Totally.
I don't
I
know.
know I feel the same with the soul contract thing because I think the only way to, let's say, get to where you are right now is through those relationships. And yes, some people can stay in that one relationship and they evolve together and they can choose to go to those next levels together. And other people, if both partners are not willing, it's not going to work. Right. And so for me, I got to that place too where I always think if he was willing to do all that, we could go together. But I was the same. Like I had my heart chakra actually open at right before I got pregnant with Dax. So I went to see a Reiki healer. She did all this work on me. I was like, what the hell was that? That was weird. And I could feel all these things starting to happen, like the unraveling of all the blocks I had put up. And so that's when my opening happened. I feel like the first baby step opening, but didn't fully open again until recently. And when I came back to see her a few months later and I was pregnant, she fell to her knees crying because she was like, this is exactly what you needed to start learning love. And I was pregnant. And so I wasn't married. Like I was not married. I got pregnant. We had just been dating maybe closer to 2 years. But same thing with the marriage, like how you were like, are we doing this or not? Like, do you even want to be with me? Like, I remember feeling that like that all the time. And I'm like, if you don't, just tell me the truth. Cause I can feel something is off. Like I can feel you're not fully in this. So like, just tell me, because if you're not in it, that's okay. But like, I need to know. And the same thing, we ended up getting married. I was pregnant and it was just like he handed it to me in the car, like here. So it's like
Oh,
it's not, it is
I'm
not
sorry. It's
the way
crazy.
you envision it happening when you've been like fed a fairy tale wedding and engagements and all these things. And then you're like, here, I guess let's do this.
Yeah.
Like it was just so, but back then I was the pusher. So it's like you were probably the same. Like I was so in my masculine of like, okay, we're doing these things. And I was like, okay, well, it makes sense. Let's just get married. Let's just go get rings. Let's just go do this thing. Like I was pushing the whole thing along. And so now I'm in a place where I'm like, I will never do that again. Like if I want to feel chosen, like let the guy choose me. I was forcing it along too. And only recently did he tell me after we've split up that he was like, I actually didn't know if I wanted to be with you. And I was like, you've never told me that, but I could feel it. I knew. And so now I'm just like, see, it's so helpful. And imagine we could have that open communication back then, right? Just partnerships. Like if you can have that open communication, it changes everything because then you can have a real conversation about it. So yeah,
Oh, it's
it's wild.
interesting. My current partner and I, man, we have been in on the growth journey. It has been the growth journey, and it's full of love and growth and passion and fire. I mean, it's got it all the elements in it. And the other day we were talking about this,
Mm-hmm.
um, because he's been married before. I've been married before. He doesn't believe in marriage anymore, and we've talked about having a ceremony
Yeah.
to celebrate our coming together and our union. But there were times when I had this resistance to even that, because I had this feeling, the same thing about being chosen. So my mother chose to have me because she gave birth to me at 15. But then I went to live with my grandma for a year. Okay, so then she let me go to my grandma. My father gave me up for adoption. All these men left, and then the pageants and modeling, not being chosen, not being enough,
Mm-hmm.
all these different things that really contributed to me feeling like I want to be chosen. So what was interesting is my partner and I were talking about this, that some of my reactive behavior, when I get into fear, I go back to that pattern of like, are you choosing me? Are you choosing
Yeah.
me? And so the cool thing is that I'm really aware of my pattern and my trauma. And, he'll look at me and say, I've asked him to look at me and say, when I feel those fears, to say, you're enough. You're enough, baby. Because there's been times when he gets very reactive and he wants to avoid and he wants to
Yeah.
run.
Yep.
And so he wants to shut down. So we actually we recognize we both have these traumas, we both have these patterns, and we're both here to help mirror for each other the work that needs to be completed. So I get the chosen, but I'm learning that the best choice that can ever be chosen is me choosing me, and then my relationship with the creator,
Yep.
period. Anything else after that is just icing on the cake.
Right. And seeing it as, because I think it's the attachment. Like, I feel like I'm really learning attachment right now, where I'm like, okay, you have to be like, the only thing that is constant is you. And then you're
Yeah.
exactly like you said, your relationship with God, creator, source, divine, whatever you want to call it. That is the only thing you can really control in your life. And then every other person is usually a moving piece to the puzzle for your evolution and your growth. So to get attached to like the one way of things being, for me too, I just don't know. I think I still do want a wedding because I want to like redo what I didn't have. But at the same time, I'm like you, it would be very ceremonial. It would be our commitment of choosing each other. It would be so different than the like unconscious way that I did it the first time. And it just, yeah, it is powerful to know that like I've learned that too. It's like the only choosing you have is you. And as a female, like you have the power to also choose. You don't just need to get chosen by some man. Like you need to realize, do you even want to choose them? Because
Exactly.
you have the power to choose too. So can you just tell them a little bit about your, because I know, where did you go for a big healing journey and then you ended up like meeting in a grocery store? Can you just tell them that story? Because I think it's so cute and like gives people,
Yeah.
I don't know, I just love it.
Well, it is a pretty powerful story, and I'm
Yeah.
so excited. I've started writing my fifth book, and it's really the
Great.
journey of choosing me.
Mhm.
And so, for those of, I mean, I have no doubt that this is going to touch millions of women's lives and men. I know that because it's this revelation of, we get caught up in, am I enough, I need this and I need that, I need this achievement, I need this recognition, I need to be seen. It's like this hungry lion that's never fed enough, and so we keep running and running and running, trying to find the answers, and we just keep hitting brick walls. And so for me, my heart chakra was opened up when I was 42. um, my marriage had been really, it was on the down
Mhm.
decline for a long time. We were great roommates, and I remember like one night going out with my ex-husband for dinner. We got home at 6 and he went downstairs, sat in front of the TV, drank a bottle of wine and ate peanuts. And I'm like, call him upstairs. I'm like, is this it? Is this our life? Like, I can't do this. Like, I want to go to art shows. I want to travel. I want to, like, this isn't me. And he's like, what do you expect us to do? And he was like, it just wasn't right. So that night I prayed for more love. And I thought it was going to be more love with him, because I never imagined divorce, because that just, I didn't want divorce. That was like, I didn't want to go down that road. That was not what I had planned. I have 3 children, 3 boys that are
I just
coming
love that you said
grown.
it's not what I had planned because it's the same. I'm like,
Yeah,
that's not my part of the plan.
not part of the plan. No, no, no. I mean, I worked hard to, get this 20 some years in here. And I met someone,
Mm.
and we won't go into that story. I will talk about it in my book. It's really, really deep, and it's mind blowing stuff. But my heart chakra was opened. I
Hey,
never known what that was.
me too. Yeah,
Yeah.
same
It's
thing.
like, so what happens is, if you don't take the action, the universe is going to force you to
Mhm.
take it. And they're going to bring someone in who's going to shake it up and wake you up. And so my grandmother, my beautiful grandma, who's going to be 90 this year, came to visit me. And we were at this little duck pond, and this was right after I had met this soul who opened my heart up. And we're sitting there, and I looked at her and I said, Grandma, do you miss Grandpa? And Grandpa had been passed away for a few years. And she looked at me, and they were married for over 60 years. And she said, honestly, honey, no. I love your grandpa, but I was lonely my entire life. He never talked to me. And I was shocked because my grandma is a Southern Baptist. My grandma loves Jesus more than anybody I know. Okay? She prays for people more than anybody I know. Like, to hear her so vulnerable with me, I looked back at the ducks in the pond and I said, this is going to be my life if I don't take action.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'm not going to end up like that. And I didn't tell Grandma that at the time, but once I dropped her off at the airport, I literally found an apartment, told my husband I'm leaving. Like, it was like that. It was like an instant.
Mm-hmm.
And he was so shocked, so blown away. Like, it just came, I could have done that differently. I look back, and if the one piece of advice I would give to any of you who are maybe in that trying to figure it out mode, there's number one, if you've given as much 100% physical and spiritual effort and it's not changing, okay, then that's a conversation. If they're not willing to grow, if they're not willing to do the work, that's, a good sign. That's a red flag. But if I could have changed anything, I would have changed the way I would have done it.
Mm-hmm.
I was very much, because my heart chakra was open and I had feelings I never felt before. I was just like on cloud 9. I was just like, okay, I'm doing the right thing. I'm going to leave my marriage before I know I would possibly cheat.
Uh-huh.
Okay. But I did it all very fast, and it hurt him and hurt a lot of people in the process. So there's things I would have done differently. So I would say just be mindful and thoughtful about how you go about doing things. It's never going to be easy, but yeah. So, I didn't get to the other part. I'll make it quick because this is a long story. So that didn't work out with that soul, the one that opened up my heart chakra. But I went on a plant medicine journey in Mount Shasta.
What plant medicine did you do?
Well, I've done lots.
But at that one time, what was
that point, I did some sananga, some hape, and some mushroom.
Okay.
I've done peyote and mushroom. I've done ayahuasca. I've done a lot of ketamine. I've done lots of different medicines through my healing journey. But that one was my first experience with the medicines with a shaman. Well, he doesn't call himself a shaman, but for the sake of the listeners, he was like a shaman. And it was 9 days of a deep cleanse, food-wise as well as spiritual. We released a lot of energetic cords that were attached to me from other people. And one of the 5 days into the journey, I met my current partner in the avocado section of the grocery store. Our eyes met, and I felt something, and that was my greatest fear, was that, am I ever going to feel for another man what I felt for this man? I thought, oh my God, I'm never going to feel that again. Well, that's untrue. Now I know. I felt something, and I didn't even know how to flirt. I went and checked out with my stuff, and he's following me down the aisles. Now, he was not I never imagined myself with a Latin man, but he had this beautiful curly long hair, dark skin, total Latin lover. I mean, if you can imagine. Yeah. And I was like, wow, I'm attracted to him. Okay, I'm not usually attracted to people. Like Bradley Cooper was about it. He was high on my list. I thought that for sure is my future. And so we checked out. He checked out with his avocado. Our eyes met again. I left the building. He leaves the building. He didn't see where I went. I didn't see where he went. We got into our cars and we left. And I remember thinking, that is amazing that I felt something. I went back and told my shaman, I said, I just met somebody, but I didn't really meet anybody because we didn't talk, but our eyes met. And he's like, whoa, Christy, calm down. You're healing, blah, blah, blah. 5 days later, I was supposed to leave at 6 p.m. that night. from the retreat, and I heard a voice wake me up and said, "It's time to go." And I was like, "What?" And the voice said, "It's time to go." So I went to David. I said, "David, I need to go." And he's like, "Well, you're supposed to be here we have more work to do." And I said, "I know, but I just feel like I have to integrate. I love you. This has been great." I said, "Let's go ride some horses, and then I'll go." So the lady at the horse farm was gone, so we didn't ride horses. I went to this crystal shop to get a crystal that would remind me of my transformation and my experience. All these things that were happening. This is what's crazy, Carly. About 4 years prior to that, I had been in Guatemala. It's running a mission trip, and I got bit in the ass by a dog, and I had to get a rabies shot when I came home. Okay. Anyway, another story. The reason why it makes sense here is we're sitting in this shop, and this woman's taking forever. She just can't figure out the stupid cash register. And I just had this beautiful spiritual experience, and I'm starting to get impatient. And I heard another voice that said, "Remember what happened the last time that you were impatient?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I got bit in the ass by a dog and had to get a rabies shot. Okay, I'm going to slow down." So I slowed it down, and that probably gave me about 15 extra minutes there. Mm-hmm. When I left, I went to the grocery store to get groceries because I hadn't been gone for 9 days, never even remembered never remembered him, just forgot.
Yeah.
As I was leaving the building, the doors opened and we ran into each other.
I love it so much. Isn't it crazy? Because I'm like, it's just, when you have that trust too and you're not looking, it's like it's always perfect. But it is like a movie.
It is a movie. And what I love about this story is that we get so caught up in apps and trying to swipe right, swipe left. I'm telling you, my friends, there was something that I did to manifest this love for a few months before that I'd learned from the great Bob Proctor, who's no longer alive, but he was in The Secret and whatnot. So there was a process that I did to attract him into my life, and that shit was manifested. Okay, so if we just trust ourselves and the creator more, you're going to attract love that will blow your mind versus just swiping.
Well, yeah.
And AI.
Well, and you're trying to make something work because my friends were like, just download the apps. And I was like, okay, fine. I'll like put myself out there and have an app. And what I found with the app is like, as you swipe, you also are trying to be like, well, maybe he could work. Oh, well, maybe. Because like, it's so, I don't know, people that you would never even come in contact with in regular life. And so it's like, you're trying to hope that this would work and like give people chances that you in regular life would have no interest in because you're just trying to get like the best that's on there. Yeah. It's just not, it's unnatural. I'm sure there's lots of great love stories from apps too, but like for me, I believe in my own power so much more that I'm like, I just don't see it happening here.
And that's where, if you believe in your power, which I encourage you all to do, that's when the magic really happens. Because I actually had a really bad Tinder experience that led me to that trip. So I had never been on so this is what's interesting. So I had never been on the apps, and I got onto this app. I even paid the extra VIP so I could have San Francisco and LA, so I could get my pool larger. And there was this guy that I met who used to work on Wall Street. He was very attractive. He had sold everything, had a van, and was like in my neck of the woods. Okay, we had I'd never had a one night stand in my life. I had a 2-night stand with this dude. Okay. It was amazing, and I had not had sex with a man for a while, so I was really loving it. It was really different for me. It was great, but he wound up being like the biggest a-hole. It was just obvious when he left. I was like in tears. I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this. I can't be on these apps. This isn't. And I went to my grocery store, and I saw a spiritual friend of mine who used to be famous in Hollywood, was in the underground with Leonardo DiCaprio, changed her name, was just completely different human now. And I said, Monet, I hate it. I was on Tinder. I met this man. It was horrible. I'm just a mess. Are there any hot guys that are spiritual and not too woo-woo? And she said, have you heard of Way of the Jaguar in Shasta? I was like, Way of the who? No. Like, who names themselves that? And anyway, that was the man that I went on the retreat with, and that's how I met Gons. So because of this negative thing that sent me spiraling into tears, it led me to my my divine appointment.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
To trusting, just trust your
yeah.
intuition,
Yeah.
trust it.
I know. And just even the whispers that were like, you got to leave now, that
Yeah,
you trusted that, because had you stayed all day, like you wouldn't have sat there.
no,
And
no.
it really is when you get to that place of you don't need to understand why or know the exact reasons. It's like just listen to what you're feeling. Like I've realized that too, even in this recent situation when Daniel finally shared, like, yeah, actually, I really wasn't sure if I wanted to be with you because things were so weird in the beginning. And I was like, I knew it. Like I could feel it and I knew it, but I was too, I didn't have the trust back then in myself to trust what I was feeling and to
Mhm.
know that without reason and proof and logical understanding that like that feeling was enough. And now I feel like I get those feelings and I'm like, okay, I don't need to have all the other answers. Just follow the feeling.
Mm.
Follow the feeling. They're so powerful.
Babe, that's epic. Everyone, if they can just take that that sauce right there, that is the follow your. But we have a tendency to not trust ourselves. So what we do is we go to our girlfriends and our guy
Yeah.
friends, and we're like, "So what do you think? What do you
Mhm.
think?" And all of that's really can be valuable information. If all of your best friends who you trust say that guy is a jerk, stay away, or that woman is crazy, whatever, you probably should be paying attention to what your friends are saying if you have good friends.
Good friend.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
love
anyway, yeah, I think again the work is really learning to love yourself,
it. Hmm.
taking the time. I've been watching your journey. And you know what I love about you, many things I love about you, Carly, but you're really digging in and you're doing such epic spiritual work. You've
Hmm.
proven yourself in the career space. I mean, you've reached the 0.01% of the industry.
Hmm.
Like you got that mastered. But what I love is that once you got there, you recognize that there's so much more.
Hmm.
And when you, that spiritual path is that is like that's the juice. That's
Yeah.
where it's lasting fulfillment. And because you're doing that work, the level of man that will meet you,
Hmm.
like it's gonna blow your mind because he's
I know.
gonna have done the work.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think, well, for me, it was, I feel like I mean, I had my first, like when I first got into Reiki and stuff, I was 21, I think, when I went to that appointment. I'm going to be 32. So it was a decade ago that I had pieces of the spiritual. Like remember Gabby Bernstein's The Universe Has Your Back. Like I was diving into that space. And then I got with my husband, who was not really into that. I kind of fell out of my practices. I fell out of my meditation practices. I ended up getting pregnant. Then I went and built a business. And I honestly pushed away that for over 5 years. I hadn't meditated. I hadn't really prioritized my own health. I hadn't checked in with myself. I was living completely out of here, had abandoned my heart aside from my kids. And it wasn't until honestly like 2020 and the wake up of the changes of the world and then moving to California where there was a soul and it was that same thing, walked through doors and we went, what the hell was that? Like the
Mm,
same feelings where you're like, and I'm like, okay, but I'm married, so that can't be anything. Like, but I understood this is a soul contract of some kind. I don't understand what this is, but there's some purpose here between this connection and this meeting. And that situation started to bring me back into myself, my body. I wasn't so invested in the working on my business anymore. I was like, wait, you got to like take care of your health again. You need to start getting connected to you again. And so it went to back to health, became number one priority. I'd already mastered business in a pretty good way. Like, of course, there's always more growth to do. And then it brought
right.
me back to my spiritual side and relationships. And so I always feel like that is kind of life. Like when you either master yourself, you're going to end up mastering relationships and business and health along the way, or you'll master one thing and then it leads you to the next. But if you don't see that, because of course there's people who are super successful, lots of money, but their relationships, their health, and their connection with any spirituality is completely jacked up. So it's
Mm,
realizing that once you've mastered one, okay, where else can you go to start mastering everything else that makes you whole and complete? And then business will always be taken care of. Like once you get on that journey of mastering yourself and your health and your relationships, like business is going to end up growing because you become so powerful in just who you are.
Yeah, and guys, I
Yeah.
don't want you to also think that once you meet that soul, listen, because
Yeah.
like you said, that you had a sacred contract with a man that woke you up and got you out
Yeah.
of a relationship that was not where you were supposed to be for your next
Yeah.
stage. So, but you know, once what I realized was I thought that being with my partner now, oh my gosh,
Mm-hmm.
this is it. Like, wow, now I know why that man came into my life, and this is
Yeah.
so fun, and there's so much growth and love and passion. And then the real work started.
Yep.
So we are mirrors for each other. Like
Mm-hmm.
any of the stuff that was not healed in the 20 years I was married to my ex, guess what? I asked for growth
Mm-hmm.
and I'm getting growth.
Yeah.
And I'm getting growth beyond what I mean. I should have been specific when I asked the universe for someone to
Yeah.
grow. And so, it's been beautiful, but it's been hard as F as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I've told him before, raising children was easier than this,
Mm-hmm.
building an empire was easier than this, but I still love this. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when you know if it's hard and it's just not working and you don't love it and you don't have that passion and that fire,
Mm-hmm.
it's a big red flag. But you
Yeah.
still got it there. It just means it's your ego that's dissolving. It just means that you're healing some shit.
Right. And I think, I don't know if you agree with this at the point you're in too, where I think I'm not even, okay, yes, I would love to find my person I'm supposed to be with forever. But I'm also so trusting in like there's going to be perfect seasons. And when it's time for that season to be done, I'm so trusting in that. Like if that comes to the place where this next person shows me all of these amazing things and unlocks all this new stuff, and I finally am able to like rely on a man for the first time, that I really do feel that safety and all of those amazing things that can happen in a partnership. He could teach me that. And then that could be it. And then I could have somebody else that's supposed to teach me something else. And so
It's true.
I just, I'm so, I don't know. I'm just not committed to any way of it being. And instead being like, we're here for a soul evolution. And those
Yes.
certain contracts will be there on purpose to awaken whatever it is that needs to be awakened within you to help you evolve and grow if you are on that path. And of course, there's lots of people who don't want that. And they're happy in the comfort of choosing one person and sticking it out and watching TV every night and like not leaving their four walls. And that's totally a different experience where for me, I want maximum growth, maximum evolution. And I'm just like you, where when it gets uncomfortable, because I know there's no one is ever fully healed. You can look at me, look at Christy, and be like, wow, so amazing. And I'm like, we're still in the shit. Like, we're still going to have the stuff that you feel like you're not worthy enough, or you get in the relationship. And then, like, for me, blew up in my face. And I haven't even done a full episode about all of this, but where I'm like, oh, it awakened all of these things within me. And then you're still cheated on and you're still betrayed. And all of these things that you had worked through in the past with men, it gave all of it to me. And for me, my biggest lesson was all of those things that hurt you in the past that you wrote off men for, like closed your heart from. I got handed on a silver platter, every single one in one spot. And I think for me, it was learning unconditional love, that it was never really about these people doing all of this stuff to me. It was me learning, hey, how did you self abandon and overlook all of this stuff that led to this spot in the first place? And then understanding people are people and they're still going to be human. And what if all of those lessons were perfect? And so when all of this happened, and of course I was hurt, but I was like, this was so perfect because I realized through everything he just did to me, and I used quotations because I'm like, he did it for himself and it was just an experience I was in. I was like, oh, I can still choose love through this. I don't have to hate them. I don't have to close my heart. I can understand that this experience is totally for him and honestly was perfect for me because it showed me those wounds that I had weren't controlling my life anymore. They weren't keeping me to have my heart closed. It was like, yeah, these things could happen in relationship. But at the end of the day, it's all good because I still have me. And if I want to choose to work through that with you to try to heal what's causing the betrayal in the first place, or the so many men that choose to cheat or run or do whatever, like you can choose to work through that in a relationship if you want to. I just see even affairs, I see so differently now. I see cheating so differently now. All of it, because I'm like, it's just an escape. Like there's just stuff going on in your relationship you're not being honest about. And if you can come to a place where you can fully openly communicate, I feel like you're at a place where you wouldn't have to feel like you need to hide anything anyways. You could actually have an open, honest conversation about what's you're feeling, what's going on, ideally before any of that stuff happens.
Well, that is an incredibly emotionally mature, evolved outlook where most people never get to. And so I want to applaud you in that work because I know what it takes to actually get there. What I will say to the audience as you listen to Carly,
Yeah.
you might be thinking there is no way in hell, or, like feel those emotions. And that's okay too,
Yes.
because, you know, it's easier said than sometimes done because when you get triggered from that childhood wound or that past wound and you're in it, when you're when you're in it, it's a little bit harder to feel that unconditional love, and that's okay to
And
acknowledge
I'll
that.
say this too. This is like months later, a year later, like in the
Yeah,
moment, I wasn't like, wow, I love you. Thanks for doing this to me. Like,
exactly.
no, it brought up all the feelings that I had happened to me in the past. And it's like, how did I get here? How did I not see that this is where this would come to? Like, and you blame yourself almost too, because you're like, what am I missing here? I thought I was doing all this work. How could I end up in this situation again? But for me, I was like, that was part of the lesson, was to have that experience again and then know that I'm okay. And I don't, and for me, it was choosing not to block my heart off again to every male and to go back to being this closed hardened person. That was my personal lesson. Your lesson can be totally different. So, exactly. When
Absolutely.
you first find out someone cheats on you or does all this crazy stuff, you're not going to be like, I love you. Like, that's probably not the feeling you're going to have.
Not not for a while. Not after,
Yeah.
maybe after some superhero, psilocybin journeys, you might be able to get
Yeah.
there. But I know for me, I had a level. I actually didn't realize I had PTSD,
Mm.
and I had no idea. Like, I've always been able to fix things by growing or learning, or just having a different mindful choice. But I now have a whole nother level of compassion for men and women who have PTSD from something traumatic. And it could be micro trauma or macro traumas, and it could be a lot of things that have happened. You can never predict when these things happen. And how you can recognize that you have PTSD is if you literally you're in fight or flight, and it doesn't shut off. I actually had to get ketamine treatment, which I went through 6 ketamine treatments. And that literally started the journey for me of, like, the brain was just wired in fear. It was crazy. So regardless of, like, I don't know where each person's going to be in a different journey. That's why I love you doing these podcasts, because these vulnerable people think they're alone, or it's just them, or how I don't know what to do, right? And this is just great conversations to help people to realize you're not alone. But what Carly is saying, yes, that is where the finish line we want to get to is unconditional love for no matter what someone chooses.
And what I was going to say too is knowing that, like, I think some people still are so afraid of plant medicine. And I finally had that pull of like, no, I need to go do this. I need to go now. Last year, like, I knew I was supposed to go, and I actually signed up to do ayahuasca, but it got switched and it ended up being psilocybin, which I'm grateful for, because I think had I gone into it with never touching plant medicine straight to ayahuasca, I don't know
No,
if I
no,
was
no,
ready for that lesson.
no, 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 no,
Um,
no, no. Yeah,
and this gave me such a beautiful understanding that I'm not afraid anymore. So when it's time to go do that, I will. But
yeah,
it brought me closer to love. Like, I understand the world in such a different way from doing psilocybin twice. Literally, my entire viewpoint of the world changed. And I didn't even have to do that much. Like, I only took a gram the first time and I think 3 the second. And our third one was canceled. But like, you guys, it was the most amazing experience of my life. Like, that
yeah.
feeling and the connection you have and how connected you feel to the earth, something that so many of us are missing. I just was like, wow, this is the best thing ever. The
Yeah,
best.
yeah, it is powerful. And when you do 1 or 2 grams, I mean, it just opens the heart. Now,
Yeah.
I really, guys, I mean, I host plant medicine retreats, and I have to say the most important thing you guys have to make sure that you're doing is make sure you're in a conscious, loving environment with trusted
Mhm.
sources. It is medicine is not something to mess with, especially Aya. I mean, Mother Aya
No.
is
Yeah.
that is the medicine of all medicines, and I'll tell you, yeah, that's next level. So it's not one to go into
Well, yeah,
your
I
first.
always say, for me personally, I don't know if you'd agree, like I would rather wait and spend the money and go somewhere that's sacred and beautiful to do an experience
With
rather
experienced
than take
teachers.
it in someone's basement quickly because they have the medicine. Like that's not what you want. And you also need someone that's so powerful that if dark energy comes in, they can deal with it because you're not going to be in a state to deal with that. And it probably is going to show up for you. So it's
Yeah.
knowing that like you need people who can handle all of that. And for me, I went to a place called Reunion. There's tons of beautiful places that do this work, but I would suggest because then you have time for integration. You're not like doing it one night and trying to go parent your kids the next day. Like you're in peace, you're in nature, you have time to let everything move through you. Like that's what I would say. Another thing I've done, I just did it recently. I did Hape for my first time.
Yeah.
That's an interesting experience. Like the
I have
left
a bit.
versus the right. I was
Yeah,
like,
I have
whoa.
actually a documentary of me doing Hape on that trip that I'll have
Oh
to send
yeah?
to you.
Yes.
Yeah, that exact trip when I did Hape for the first time, it was all documented in like a documentary. It's really cool.
No way.
It's crazy. Never in a million
Right.
years did I think I would do Hape.
Yeah, and I haven't even talked about this on the podcast yet. I could totally do an episode, but it was I literally could see timelines, you guys. Like I literally saw timelines bridging and coming together and I was like, "Oh, I get it." And I can't conceptualize and explain in English words, but I could see basically my future life and this life and like partner life that's coming in next, like where I feel like it's coming so close that it's like I
Mhm.
could physically see these things happening. And it was like this rainbow bridge, whether that's also like me and external worlds, you know? I always say like the rainbow between what is it, like divinity and human, whatever. But I'm
Mhm.
like, it was crazy. And then also your masculine versus your feminine sides and the stuff that
Mm.
happened in my body. It was just, it's so powerful. And I just hope that you guys know there's nothing to be afraid of if you're with someone that actually has your best interest at heart and is a
Yeah,
trusted
yeah.
source. Yeah.
It's so important. Like I actually, it's been a few years now, but I didn't realize it was a superhero journey of psilocybin. So I went to go do
Yeah.
a hero's journey with one of my shamans, and that night, Gons came with me, and he was just going to do a couple of grams just to
Yeah.
be there with me in the experience. So here I am thinking I'm getting six. Well, that night it was the most like
Sick.
the worst trip of my life. I literally thought I was dying, and there was an the shaman that was there, because when you start opening up this portal, what happens is it's like a spotlight goes to the heavens that shows, especially if you're a light worker.
Uh-huh.
I'm a light worker, you're a light worker. So it's like the all this energy recognizes there's the light workers are working, and it does leave, if you aren't with sacred energy, you are leaving yourself to be
Hmm.
unprotected. So there was an energy that tried to come into the room that the shaman actually took care of.
Uh-huh.
It was crazy, but what's interesting was that at the end of that, they found out that their supplier gave us the most potent mushroom on the planet. So I wound up in my little body, I had 9 grams, nine, which is not heard of.
It's not great.
And it was not great. It was not good. But Gons and I left after that. We sat in the shower together, and we just like held each other, and we felt so much gratitude for our love, and we just looked into
Uh-huh.
each other's eyes, and we just loved each other. Like
Mhm.
everything that we would worry about, or our fights or our disagreements, were gone.
Mhm.
And so it really does abolish the ego. If you have ego issues, the medicine's probably the best path for you.
I
But
always say too, like if you're stuck in your mind, like if you're someone who, let's say you try breath work or you try to meditate or you try to do anything and you cannot get out of here,
yeah,
doing going somewhere where even they can give you a light dose with psilocybin, because I find now when I go into breath work, it's like I carry that energy. So
Yeah.
in my breathwork journeys, get me almost to the same place without the medicine.
Mhm.
So it's not like something you need to do all the time, or that I just feel like it almost goes within your body. And now, like, I'll end up doing it again, but I don't feel this need where you need to do it all the time. It's like when I'm ready, I'll feel called to like have the next stuff show up if I need to be shown anything different. So just if you're always in your mind, it can be a really helpful tool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the medicine will call you. The right
Hmm.
medicine will call you.
I
Another
agree.
great medicine is actually besides psilocybin, Molly. They're now doing so many
The love. Yeah.
studies at Berkeley, MIT, to where it's helping people with PTSD.
Yes.
So another great one to look at.
I know. If you're really suffering with, because I've watched it. What's that documentary on Netflix? There's one.
um, yeah, there's a couple.
Right.
You can just look up plant medicine, but
Yeah.
there's
But they
yeah.
talk about that, like MDMA, Molly, whatever, using that to help people get to the experience of love. So it's so powerful. Um, okay, well, thank you. Is there any last thoughts you want to share?
Yeah, I think I just want to share, just hang in there to,
Hmm.
all the men and women listening to this. I know that we are in a really interesting time on the planet. We have been, and we have so much distraction and so much noise and so much uncertainty. And it almost feels like this, I would like to say, this innocence feels like it's left. Do you know what I mean? There was this time, I think, where things just seemed so much more innocent and pure, and yet if you really start harnessing your energy in a positive way and minding where you put yourself, the people you're with, like, this is going to help you to get through this dimensional change that we're all going through and passing through. You're not alone. We're all working through our own stuff. Nobody's arrived. No one's got it all figured out. But you do need to make sure that you put yourself in frequency and energy and around with people that are doing the work. Otherwise, you're going to struggle more.
Yes.
So, just a little encouragement there for those of you really wanting to pass through this test smoother.
Hmm. Yeah. This season of life is different. And I always say I have a friend who's like embarking on this journey now. And she's like, oh my God, because once you've started and you kind of have these spiritual awakenings and all these things start happening and you start to see life differently, you don't see life the same way. Like how you saw
Yeah.
life before and after, they're not the same. And when you say that innocence part, because things that used to feel just normal, I'm like, I can't see them the same way. I can't operate the same way. I just operate so different now. I just have one last thought, and I don't know. I feel like this could be helpful for people. I found this lately, and I don't know if you found this as you continue to raise your vibration energetically. I literally had 3 sips of champagne last night, and I have a sore throat. I get sick within a 24-hour. I don't even have to drink much. One glass, I'm sick within a day. Did you find this? Because I know you used to drink tequila still, but you were off everything else. And now you don't really drink alcohol, I don't think ever. But did you find as you continued raising your vibration, you literally couldn't put it in your body?
So Gons and I were actually talking about this, and we've had many people say the same thing to us, that we
Yeah.
don't get sick, we just don't feel the effect. Like, we don't
Mm,
feel anything. So, like, we'll have a glass of wine, and yet we don't feel anything.
yeah.
And you
Okay.
would think, because if you don't drink, so I think what's happening, it's like, it reminds me of this story, this Ram Dass story with Maharishi. So Ram Dass had gone to India. I'll make it really short, but we'd gone to
Yeah.
India, and he was the father of bringing in psilocybin to
Hmm.
America. He was a Harvard, Stanford professor, and anyway, he got kicked out of Harvard because he was doing psychedelics.
Yeah.
So here he is in India. He took a bag full of LSD, and his that's one I have not done yet. But
Yeah.
Maharishi, the his teacher, said to him, "Do you have that medicine?" And he said, "LSD," and he's like, "Yeah." He's like, give me some. So he gave him like a large dose of LSD that he would never have taken. Maharishi throws it in his mouth. Nothing happens. Then he said, oh, can I have some more of that? So he gives him like unheard of quantity.
Yeah.
Nothing happened. So what's interesting is that when you reach a certain level of enlightenment and a certain frequency, the external things that used to stimulate you will not be in the frequency to stimulate you anymore. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, what I believe is happening is that if our consciousness is rising, these external stimulants that once used to stimulate us, they can't compete with this with the level you're at. If that
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean you're some enlightened being or I'm some enlightened being. It just
No.
means that we have done the work, and there is something energetically that is not it's not working in our body.
Right.
So that's the good news.
It is.
And you're this is the I can't even tell you. I have a handful of spiritual friends who have said the same thing.
Yeah. Like I get physically sick now. So at this point I'm like, okay, I can't even have 3 sips. But tequila is the one thing. For some reason, tequila is still fine. Like if I have 2 margaritas, I'm good. But every other type of alcohol, I literally cannot drink.
Yeah, it's just probably the vibration of it. The vibration of it.
It's so interesting.
Yeah, it is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
It is all fascinating. I mean, everything has a frequency. Everything, even this podcast, we're resonating at a frequency together, and people are either going to be drawn to it or they're not going to be. But usually, especially, I think the ones that are drawn to this is the ones that are opened and they're curious. Yeah. The ones who, if you're shutting down by any of what we've spoke about, that is the work.
Yeah.
Because until you can set an environment with people that have different views, different stories, different ideas than you, and you can just say, oh, interesting, good on them, not right for me, but good on them, you're not there yet. Mm-hmm. So working on that unconditional love space and being able to let everyone, to see everyone for where they're at, whether it's their religion, whether it's their politics, whether it's their beliefs, and that's the work.
That's what I was thinking. Religion is a big one because so many people who have subscribed to religion is like their kind of indoctrination of the way they operate. They cannot fathom an idea outside of it. For me, I've always been like, I want to do a podcast about that eventually too, but I'm like, that's so dangerous because you should be able to be so firm in your beliefs because you know it is a truth. It should never threaten you to hear anyone else's thoughts. Like, and if it is, it's because there's something there that you probably don't want to look at. That doesn't make sense.
Well, and the truth is that, I love Jesus. I'm a Christ consciousness follower. But the one thing about Jesus is he never would have ever judged someone for their beliefs. Mm-hmm. So, I think if we want to just have real talk, it's really, we need to get down to we're either in fear or we're in love. Uh-huh. God in Christ is love. Fear is everything else. Mm-hmm. So when we judge it, we're in fear. When we shame it, we're in fear. When we run from it, we're in fear. Right. It's that simple.
Yeah. And as you get there, you'll see. And then you're really able to see the pieces where I always think too, because have you read They Walked with Jesus? Have you read that book? They Walked with Jesus. You will love it. And then like Jesus and the Essenes, that one too.
I was just studying that the other day. Yes.
So They Walked with Jesus is another Dolores Cannon book, but when I listened to it on audio to just get it through really quick because it's kind of a story, I went, this is truth. Like this hits me as so much truth, and I'm like, if people could just understand this, it would take away that judgment because all he was trying to teach you was love. Like there's so many great, amazing teachings from Christianity, the Bible, and Jesus. But I always just say, if you know anything about this life, the government has had its little hands on certain things, or whoever you want to say. And if it's coming from an energy of fear, that's the side that I would question always. If anything is making you Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I know. I study Kabbalah, and they
Yeah.
actually say Jesus was a Kabbalist and spent many
Mm,
time. I mean, he was a Jew
yeah.
first, right? Jesus was a Jew, so it's like it's just a matter of what I've learned is that the opponent
Hmm.
is the dark side, the
Yeah.
energy, which actually isn't even bad. So
No.
the opponent or the dark, the negative angels or whatnot, they are actually there to help you to stop reacting, to grow and evolve to be a better. Now there are spirits and entities that are really not good. Okay,
Yeah.
that's we're not going to deny that. However, but there is the opponent or the dark energy or whatever. It is there to get you to recognize where you're stuck,
Hmm.
right? So even those thoughts, that thought that you're thinking about that your ex or your family member, or you're shutting someone off, or you're not forgiving someone, or right now you're judging this whole podcast, you're judging Carly, you're judging me, you're judging the whole thing. That is the opponent feeding off of your energy.
Hmm.
So you can be really intense about something, and the opponent will feed off of that. If
Yeah.
you're in love and you feel deep, deep love, oh wow, that's when you're going to start manifesting everything your heart desires, and the love's
Yeah.
going to pour in, and the relationships will pull it. You want to attract a lover? You want to attract the love of your life? Get into love. Stop
Yeah.
judging this everything.
Yes, that's so true. Okay, I want you to send me whatever that Bob Proctor thing was about where we can find it. Like this pen that I just pulled out of your kid's
That's
pen.
pretty cute.
Yeah, you like that? But yeah, the Bob Proctor thing, because I feel like if for people who want to start learning, like how do you manifest love and call us in and blah blah blah. I just want to end on this. If you think it's something outside of you that like I'm going to learn this thing and it's going to help me manifest it, like she just said, like learn to be love and feel it within you, and it becomes a lot easier. Like it's just going to seamlessly come to you. You're not going to have to do anything. But I do think that's helpful to start getting in that energy, as long as you're not coming in from the place of how do I get the things? What are the lists of things I can do? It's like go in here as number one, and everything else will start to fall into place. But I still want to know what that is too.
Well, what I will tell you is that I have launched with my business partner a program that starts actually tomorrow night, starting at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Well, by the time you put this on the air, it's going to be past that, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
As long as somebody is, so I'm not going to mention the company, but
Yeah.
you have to be purchasing at least $150 of product from this particular company for yourself,
Yeah.
and you can actually be a part of this course that we will be teaching over a year of overcoming
Wow.
self-sabotage, as well as um, learning how to manifest that lover and
Mhm.
manifesting every I teach it in that. And so of course I only share this with people in my network, but because I love you and adore you, I'm
Yeah.
happy to share that with you in your community as well.
Okay.
But happy to share that there, and of course I'll share it with you on the site. It's just
Okay.
there's a lot there, and it comes
Okay.
in my spiritual gym workbook that I've actually created.
Okay.
Because there's a certain discipline you have to go through, and a certain steps that you have to go
Yeah.
through in order to manifest
Okay.
that perfect love.
Thank you so much for being here. If
Yeah.
people want to be able to tag you, follow you on social, where's the best place for people to find you? Is it social? Do you have a website? Obviously, I'll include in the show notes, but just for people listening.
Yeah. Yeah, go over to Instagram, Christy Dreiling. Your spiritual spotter is what it says on there. I do have a website, christydreiling.com.
Okay.
So yeah, you can find me, you can
Okay.
Google me and find me out there.
Love it. Okay, wait. And then your book, because you mentioned it, the LOL one. Do you have a link so where people can purchase that too?
You can just go to Amazon,
Okay.
LOL, Christy Dreiling. That book is going to be such an amazing precursor for
What
the
you're
next
writing
book
for.
I'm writing is like Eat, Pray, Love. It's going to
Okay.
change your life.
Okay.
But it's good to get kind of the LOL
Yeah.
before you get the next one.
I love
So
it.
I just love this time with you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you for being here. I need to come out to Florida and come see you.
Anytime, Angel. Anytime. We'll
Thank
have the
you.
time of our lives. Love
I love
you.
it. Love you. Thank you so much for being
See
here.
you, everybody. Bye
Bye.
bye.
Whoop. There.